Hello tanks and tankettes, and welcome to the first tanks replay of 2019. Although in this case it is something that is rather old school in a way. This is the T-50-2 being driven here by My Name is Puffs. And the reason why this is nostalgic is for several reasons. One, it is a very old tank in terms of the game's history, and another is that it was around the stage that this was removed from the game, the first time round, that I started making YouTube videos. And indeed one of my earliest videos was a double feature of the T-50-2, and one of the maps featured was in fact this one, Highway, although it has of course changed a bit in the intervening years. The tank itself, it seems a fairly capable Tier 6 light tank these days, although I would say the Type 64 is still quite easily the undisputed king of Tier 6 lights. It just beats this in a number of ways, but this ain't no slouch. There is actually one oddity compared to the MT25. Although it mounts the same, in theory, 57mm gun, this has slightly better penetration at 116 or was it 118? I think it's 118. 118 versus 112. And APCR is likewise just a little bit better, 165 versus 160. Not entirely sure why that's the case, but I don't think it's really enough pen to make that much of a difference. 112 versus 118, 6mm of average extra pen. It's not going to change a huge deal, and the damage is the same. In fact, the DPM figure is identical with this gun on the MT25, although that of course can also mount to 76mm, but generally you'll see people using the 57mm pew pew. So aside from the gun, it is otherwise I think slightly faster, a bit better horsepower per ton ratio, and 10 meters better view range as well, which might actually be the most significant bump in stats it has over the MT25. So all in all, if you have one of these and an MT25, it's probably preferable to play this just as a tank to play, although of course you can't grind anything from this tank. If you're wondering about the skin, by the way, well, this is the old school low res look. If you had, I think, an account over, is it 4 years old? You got the T-50-2, and if it was over 5, I think, you got this skin to go with it, alongside a badge. What was it else there? It was like a bunch of credits and maybe one or two other things. The credits for me were especially useful, because with me not having played huge amounts of World of Tanks up until this winter period, I didn't have a lot, so getting an extra jackpot was quite nice. The commander here, by the way, on this tank has that rather lesser seen skill of being able to see exactly what module damage you've done. Not that it really mattered for taking that KV-1S apart. Then a more unwelcome visitor turns up, the E25. Obviously they knew he was there from him having taken out that 12T. But as Puffs has more than enough horsepower and speed to get away from him, you'd think the E25 would likewise just back off themselves, and instead they just kind of charge out into the open, and that is their undoing. It's actually Puffs that manages to get the kill there. That's now 4 kills, by the way, if you've been paying attention. He's also up to over 1200 damage with another 1000 spotting and assistance, which is not too shabby at all. And honestly, although Highway is not everybody's cup of tea, in fact it's probably hardly anyone's cup of tea, for a tank like this with this matchmaking, this is quite ideal. Because now the enemy team is starting to well and truly crumble. It means you can really stretch your legs, move around the place, and rack up some extra damage that you might otherwise struggle to do. So just peeking out and getting some shots on the T-34-100, who does know he's here, so he's playing it a little bit cautious here. I think the MT-25 has slightly better armour than this, but it doesn't really matter when you're talking about Tier 6 scouts. It's not particularly a strong factor. So there's his top gun with the T-34-100 dead, and that just leaves the last couple of tanks presumably at the enemy base to mop up. And again, the speed is going to serve him in good stead here. He's easily going to be able to outrace every other tank on his team to get to where the enemies are first. So he'll get the spotting damage, and he'll even maybe get some extra damage from his gun as well. In the case of the P-43, however, it is purely spotting. Gets completely nailed by his allies before Puffs gets a chance to take a shot. He's slightly wary of the Nashorn, and with good reason. That thing could hurt him quite hard, but as it is, now he's closed the distance, the Nashorn is never going to beat his ability to run rings around him. Although once again, it's his allies that gets the kill. He did, however, get a little bit of extra damage in the end, so that wasn't too bad at all. So that was an ace mastery for his efforts. 2100 damage. Was that assisted? Yes, it is. I always get mixed up with which way around it is. 2100 damage assisted, and just under 2100. That's definitely a number. Just under 2100 done himself. 6 kills, easily top of the team. Nearly 1500 base XP, which is, I think, just on the cusp of being almost exactly double the next best on his team. So yeah, he was absolutely able to put the ability, put the gun, put the ability to relocate and mop up damage at the end of a game, presuming that you're winning, of course, to absolutely fine use. And I've had 1 or 2 games in this myself, but I'm incredibly rusty at tanks these days. When I've been playing this winter period, it has basically been heavies with a smattering of mediums and tank destroyers. I think light tanks would probably be a bit beyond my skill level at the moment. At least a bit beyond my bravery level, if nothing else. Anyway, a lot of games have been very one-sided, but I might talk a bit about that more in an upcoming video, because I've pulled out a couple of my own replays from while I've been playing with the Christmas events as well. So in case you missed the last video or didn't watch it, so Happy New Year to everybody. Hopefully you also enjoyed this video, and if you did, you can do all the usual things down underneath it, and of course, as always, stay tuned for more.